Scrubbing your gun until it is surgically clean or buying expensive accessories will not cover up a lack of practice. In fact, you might just be ruining your equipment and wasting your money. Today, we are exposing the biggest myths in the shooting hobby to save you cash and help you build actual skills. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Podcast US, one of the world's biggest gun talk programs. Thanks for joining us as we talk about all the interesting stuff in the world of shooting. I'm your host, Brent Wheat, and in today's episode, we are tackling common misconceptions for new firearm owners. Roy Huntington and I are going to talk about gear obsession, why you don't need to overclean your guns, and how to get over range anxiety so you can focus on building solid skills instead of buying them. But before we get started, here's a quick word from our sponsor, EOTech. EOTech is the leading manufacturer of electro-optics, known for their world-famous holographic weapons sights. EOTech also supplies high-performing precision rifle scopes for both the tactical and hunting markets, as well as ruggedized pistol optics for professional or recreational use. A full line of night vision, thermal, and laser systems are also available for military and law enforcement around the globe. For more info, visit eotechinc.com. Now, let's get down to business. Well, hidely ho there, Roy.
Hidely ho.
I'm running out of greetings, trying to do it different every time.
You catch me off guard sometimes.
Well, that's kind of the point. So get a genuine reaction. That's what makes for a good video.
You got one, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks for Roy for joining us. I will say that if you notice, especially as I start to talk, I get a little nasally. I'm just coming off a cold, so hopefully I can make it through without any sneezing or expectorating or any of that. So I beg your pardon, though, if we get further down the road, you notice I'm getting stuffy. So, well, Roy, you came up with this topic today, and let me get on my spectacles because I had to write all these down. This was really good. What inspired you to come up with this 5 things I wished I knew when I got started shooting?
Well, it comes directly from comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
And some reader mail, in the past especially, because there's a wave of new shooters, as there seems to always be, but it just seems like the ones over the past few years have longer legs. They're sticking with it. They're not the people that went down, bought a gun, a box of ammunition, and shot 6 rounds and put it away. These people are actually like going, hey, this is really fun, And of course, I mean, they're all doing all the classic mistakes that everybody does when they start a new hobby of any kind. Yep. I mean, you get the catalog and you convince yourself you need all this stuff.
Oh, exactly. And you've actually put together more than 5 here, and I've chosen a couple, but we'll kind of go down and talk about all these because you're absolutely right. Every one of these, I've made the mistake, you've made the mistake, and people are going to continue making the mistakes as long as there's new shooters around. So my favorite has to be just one more accessory is a lie. Everybody that's been shooting longer than a year is laughing right now because I'm just going to buy one more of these, and I just need one more piece of gear, and I just need that one range bag, and then everything is perfect.
Well, the one more accessory goes with your range bag collection will grow.
Yeah.
I mean, because your first range bag was like a little cardboard box that your gun came in, right?
Yeah.
And you crammed a box of ammo in it, and you put your hearing protection in your pocket, and you seemed like you were good to go, right?
Yeah.
And you probably were.
Well, the one that cracks me up, and we've talked about it at various times in the past, is this holster, this new holster right here is the end all be all. I'll never buy another holster.
Never.
And how many boxes of holsters do you have, Roy?
That's why God invented eBay, so you can sell your
Yeah.
box of holsters off. So now they're
Yeah.
all reside in other people's boxes of holsters,
Yep. Yep. It's I mean, seriously, it's absolutely true. We all think that we're just one piece of gear away from having everything we need. And it doesn't matter if you just started shooting yesterday or you started shooting 60 years ago. We're just one more piece away. And it's not true. It is just not. So I say embrace it. Just say, I'm going to buy this and I'm going to buy more stuff. And my wife or husband's going to roll their eyes and I'm going to keep buying and running that credit card up. And our friends in the manufacturing world and sales world, thank you deeply. And by extension, those of us in the media, we thank you for that. So,
Well, it goes hand in hand, though, with the whole thing about people think that technology will fix their problem, you know? And it's like, especially if you're a beginning shooter, and I had a guy the other day, he said, well, I'm just starting shooting. I want to buy one of those laser trainers, where you put a laser bullet in your, and it shoots a beam. And
yeah.
then, like I told him, I said, man, you barely know how to load your gun. So you need to be working on some other important things right now, like triggers, gun safety, basic safety, learning your way.
Yeah.
How do you get to the range? What's range etiquette? I mean, you don't buy your very first 22 pistol and then an assault course double holster with 3 speed release levers,
Yeah.
because that's a little too much too soon. And I speak from experience. It's like I really got heavily into custom woodworking about 20 years ago, and I'm and I have a shop of tools now of which I probably use 20%. I mean,
Yeah.
because I thought I bought the table saw, then I needed every accessory that humankind ever made for a table saw,
Yep.
and I found out that I kind of don't use all of them. The ones I use are 2 or 3 that I made.
Yeah.
you know, and I think you'll soon find that with shooting. I remember a million years ago, it was the old guys at the range, the San Diego Police Pistol Range. They used to show up there. They had these wooden boxes. They were famous. They were like, they would open up and it had in the top, they had the spotting scope, right?
Yeah.
And then there were usually 2 or 3 pistols, a 45, a 22, and a revolver of some sort, and a few boxes of ammunition or a few bags of, reloads that they did, and a notebook. And these guys have been shooting for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. And even then, it struck me how minimalist they were. But they were very, very good. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I think there's a
Well,
lesson there. Yeah.
exactly. I was just going to say, and I'd be interested to hear your observation on this, is I'm thinking in my own life that 80/20 rule, like you talked about, that 20% of what you own does 80% of the work. I think it's even worse than that. I think it's 5 and 95 when you're talking about reloading equipment. I've got
Oh,
so much reloading gear that never gets used, and I look at it and go, why did I really need that? So, is that just me, or is that pretty much universal? Because you've been reloading a lot longer than I have.
well, no, it is really true. I think with reloading, it really depends on your category. This is another good question about new shooters, because some people, they become a shooter and they're not the least bit interested in reloading. So you don't have to worry about them. Then there are people who start shooting and they immediately want to buy 4 Dillon Square B presses, 500 pounds of
Raising
powder.
my hand.
Yeah. And it's like, I have to say, but it goes back to the basics then, which is you buy a basic Lee loader kit, learn how to load on it, and then only buy the things that you need as you need them. You know, it's like my rule with tools right now is I don't buy a tool unless I need it for whatever the project is, and I don't have it,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
can't adapt some tool that I have for it. So because there's wants and needs, you know,
What?
and
What kind of
know,
crazy talk is this?
I know, so it's, I think one of the other things we talked about is it's a complete falsehood when you say, oh, I'm only going to buy one, you
Yeah.
know,
That's down here. I was going to talk about that, but
yeah.
actually, you kind of already touched on the next one, so let's go ahead and go to that one. That targets don't get easier just because you bought a cooler looking gun. And I think that is such wisdom, and we've talked about it a lot. I'd say we talk about it almost every episode here at Guns Podcast US, because we're all guilty of it, especially in early on in your shooting career. If I just had this gun, that would make all the difference in the world. Suddenly, I'd be out shooting Robbie Latham or Jerry Mishlick, and I got to say, it's pretty disappointing when you save your lunch money and you buy that gun, and suddenly you realize, dang it, I'm not shooting any better. What is wrong with this equation? This gun was supposed to make me a world champion, and it doesn't work that way.
Well, I hate to use the woodworking analogy, but it applies across the board with everything. A good mechanic can rebuild your car motor with some pretty basic tools.
Yeah.
And a good woodworker, if you hand him a handsaw, a plane, a good pencil, and a straight edge, he will probably build something pretty nice,
Yeah.
And yet you give an amateur a completely equipped shop, well, they're not going to know how to use most of the stuff anyway. It looks cool. And I think in the firearms, what? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, in the firearm side of things, I look at today's semi-auto pistols, the factory-produced semi-auto pistols, and to me, and I don't mind, it's business, and they make what they sell, so obviously they're selling it. But semi-auto pistols increasingly look like the CNC machine got controlled by AI, and it wanted to explore every possible thing that the CNC machine could do.
Yeah.
Every type of cut, every type of angle, every type of everything. And so, I mean, I got a press release from a big name company, and it said the new something, auto pistol. And what they've done is that they remachined the slide and the grip frame to some degree of a pistol they already had. But they ended up with all these sharp edges and things that don't do anything, and they arguably look cool. To me, it looks like a roof air conditioner unit on a commercial building, and I think the problem is new shooters, especially, they look at that and they go, "Oh, that looks cool." Right? And so they want that. And that's fine if you want to buy it and just enjoy it and it looks cool, but it's not going to make you a better shooter unless you already know how to shoot. And then maybe there are some features that have some benefits that might improve you another 5%. But no, the answer is go get yourself a used Ruger Standard 22 Auto and learn to shoot.
What? Learn to shoot? What kind of FUD advice is that?
I know what you mean.
I had to laugh when you were saying, a rank beginner in a well-equipped wood shop. Well, I've been to your wood shop. I've done projects under your tutelage, but I was laughing because if you said, go up to the shop and I'll be up in an hour or two, just do whatever you want. You know what I would do? I'd cut probably 6 of my fingers off. That's exactly, there would be blood and snot and seaweed and bone chips everywhere, clogging your vacuum system. And that's exactly what would happen because I would be way overmatched by the equipment. So shooters, we never, it's like, I at least understand I don't want to approach all that stuff you have, especially the power planer, without knowing, the basics of it. But yet people will buy really involved and elaborate guns that are really high quality pieces, but they may not be ready for it. And of course, we don't read the instruction manual. So, it does that. Well, yeah, and maybe you should have taken some time to learn it and maybe build your own skills before you jumped in with both feet. And speaking as a guy who jumps in with both feet and never reads the instruction manual, I get it, I understand it, but as a new shooter, especially, slow down, speed racer, as I always say, and try to understand what you're getting into first.
Well, I saw a funny thing the other day. It was a picture, and it was this kind of, pretty hot looking classic retro vintage pinup blonde, right? And she's looking like this, right? And underneath it says, she says, "I'm not needy, I'm wanty."
Wow.
And it just, I went, that's it. It's like new
Yeah.
shooters probably aren't needy. I mean, if you have a
They're
gun and
wanting.
ammo and hearing protection and eye protection, and I mean, that's kind of all you really need, and then someone to show you what to do. But they are wanty,
Yeah. And the funny thing is, we're not making fun of you because we've all done it. We've just sort of gotten past it, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 71 years old now, and I confess I finally have reached a time in my life that the buy it now button isn't necessarily so interesting to me.
You're not hitting it like a slot machine.
Yeah, it's like you're on Amazon or something, you're looking for a new wrench and you see all these other wrenches. Well, there was certainly a time in my life when I would say, well, I'll probably get one of those two and one of those two. Just because it satisfies that, whatever that, wanty thing that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And now I'm smart enough to, at least usually, to say that do I really need that? In other words, do I already have a tool that's going to do that? And yes. So it's that it's that balance though between the satisfaction of buying something new and cool, or the satisfaction of being able to accomplish it with what you have.
I totally agree, and I believe what you're saying, and you're being earnest. However, it is now you have to swear and affirm under penalty of perjury that about what you're about to say is true. I'm going to ask you a question. Part of our job is every day, and we're kind of both the same way. We do that roll call we get press releases all the time. We read the Outdoor Wire and a lot of other news services, but we need to know what's going on. And Roy, you can't tell me that probably once a week or so, you read a press release, go, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. Huh. Maybe I want to try one of those out. Hey, I happen to know the marketing director there. And now the brown truck of joy will be showing up at your door. So you still do that, don't you?
Well, yes. It less and less though, because here's the reality of it.
I believe
I have reached a point there where you just say, oh, that new scope, I would like to get one, and then I get it and I realize, well, I have 25 other scopes sitting in boxes over here, and any one of them probably could have done this, so I tend to nip that in the bud. I mean, if I was 45 years old and early in my career in the industry, where having a lot of product on hand is really important, that would probably be different. I saw something the other day. It was Chiappa, I think it was. They are introducing a side-by-side double rifle in .44 Magnum. And I just went, I know, it was in the Outdoor Wire, and it was just like, and I just went, no.
Okay,
and
just between us. So when's it getting here?
I know. I didn't. Well, one thing, it was
I know that's what you're saying, but
no, I just really didn't. And because that was truly, I mean, if I had a use for it, like I'm going to go to Africa and we're going to do up close kudu or something, All right, well, that would be interesting and fun. I do that, but I have absolutely no need for it. And so after I make a video or write an article, there it sits over there in the corner, and oh no. But anyway, look, back to what we're doing about here. Pick out another one. You have my notes. What's another one?
Okay. I love this one. Everyone at the range, everyone at the range seems like a professional. I still do this. I get there and I look at, typically the old guy down, and it's like, yeah, he really knows what he's doing. And I hope he doesn't understand that I don't feel like I really know that much about what I'm doing, even though I've got obviously a lot of experience and skills. But it always seems like there's always somebody there, and sometimes multiple somebodies that really have it going on. And you made the point though, Roy, that I think that guy's going, wow, I hope he doesn't realize that I don't really know what I'm doing here. So
I know.
I,
I
I think
know.
it's funny that, we tend to overestimate others and underestimate ourselves, at least most of us.
Well, that's a classic syndrome, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's where you're always afraid that you're going to be discovered. It's like
Yeah.
a CEO of a company. Yes, he's there, but he's always secretly afraid that someone's going to find out he's not really qualified.
Yeah.
But if he is the CEO, then he must be qualified. So usually, right? So if you're a shooter, I don't know why it's so competitive, even if it's just inside, but new shooters are intimidated. They're afraid to ask questions. And I really don't understand that. And that's where you need to have somebody who's, a welcoming. That's why, what do we always say? Take a new shooter shooting, you know? And it can help them overcome that because, as you say, it's one letter away from fun.
Fun.
And
yeah,
and so I think don't worry about the guy next to you. Is he better than me? I hope he is, and I hope that he's kind enough to work with you.
Yeah.
But you need to stop your anxiety.
Well, for some of us, that's easier said than done, but I still fall prey to that. Of course, when we're going to media events, I mean, some of the guys we work with are just unworldly shooters. They're just great. But it is a good feeling when you're on the line. It's like, oh, I shot better than that guy, and I shot better than that guy. And I will say the FMG pubs, we always had a pretty good rep of we know our way around a gun. So
it's true. Yeah,
that's always a good thing.
We usually won whatever writers event. Of course, that's not saying much sometimes,
Yeah.
So I want to go on to one of these that I think is particularly true, and it's very true if you're a new shooter. And these are all things I think it's almost like we should print this out and say if you're a new shooter, you should print this out.
Yeah.
And to be aware
I could do that, Roy. We have that technology.
Do that. Yeah, we could
do that. Offered as a PDF download.
Yeah, well, because I think it would put a lot of new shooters at ease. That was, they would go,
yeah.
I have a lot of anxiety. I want to buy one of everything. And it's, if we talk about that, it's like, everybody has that. It's okay. You don't have to do that. Stop. Right.
Yeah.
But something I've noticed, particularly with new shooters, and especially the newer, younger shooters, because they're all a tribe nowadays, right? They've all got it's all about the social. Everybody knows what everybody else is doing 24 hours a day. And if one of them decides they want to go shooting, it suddenly really piques the interest of like all their other friends. So when they post that selfie and they're at the range with a rental gun, and they're holding up a target with some bullet holes in it, and hey, look what I did. Well, it's like, you did that? And they want to know about it, and how did you do it, and was it hard, and was it scary, and did it cost a lot, and
you broke the ice for them.
You really did, and be prepared for that. But then you have to make sure that you don't do something, which too many of them do, which is you've gone shooting 3 times now, so you're the expert.
Yep.
Now, you may be an expert to them, but you're not an expert yet, and don't think you are. So
keep it in perspective.
Yeah, keep it in perspective.
One of the ones that I love this because you never think about it, but it's absolutely true. Cleaning your gear takes longer than using it. And that's kind of like your year number 2 guy. It's because at first everything's new and exciting and you're learning and then it really becomes a drudge and it's like, I went shooting for an hour, and it took me an hour and a half to clean my gear. What is up with that? It never gets any better or any easier. So you might as well just accept it and move forward. But it's absolutely true that I think that's probably one of the more disheartening moments in shooting is when you realize, God, I got to clean all this up and put it back in order. And if you don't, you'll regret it the next time, because I've been on that side of it too. But yeah, cleaning's just the price you pay for going. So don't be too upset by it. Just accept that it's the price you pay.
Or or you could do what I do, which is the only guns I have that actually get cleaned semi-regularly are my personal protection guns. So
Yeah.
I take the Ruger LCP out once a week with the canned air and blow out all the dust bunnies,
Yeah.
and, I don't know, once every couple months, I take it apart and wipe it off and put some fresh lube in it and run it a few times, put it back in my pocket. But with my other guns, by what I call my fun guns, just, hey, I just shoot this at the targets in the backyard, or, that kind of stuff. I generally don't clean them until they stop working. So, it's really true.
I will completely agree with that. And I wanted to make the point that, even when I was coming up, maybe I'm about the last generation of this, and I think this started in the military, that your gun has to be spotless every single time you go to the range. And when I was a law enforcement sniper, that was absolutely mantra, that, your gun had to literally be surgically clean. And I would say that we've gotten better about that in the idea that, most guns we've learned they'll run wet, they'll run dirty, but they won't run dry. So they may be filthy with carbon and everything else, but as long as you're lubing them amply to maybe a little bit excessively, they're going to run and they're going to perform. But, so the level of cleanliness is not super critical to operation, but lubrication is, with the exception being precision rifles. Yeah, you don't want to, be trying to do that with a bore that looks like there's mushrooms growing in it. But for most guns, if you keep them lubed and wet, they're going to run. So your thoughts on that, Roy? Because I remember coming up, it's, how is that gun dirty? You just leave here. You're a terrible human being. It's like,
I know, and it really doesn't matter.
One spot.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think usually the early demise of guns, especially precision guns, are from people taking them apart and cleaning them too many times.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, because I hear from people that you see in comments, it's like, oh, no, I detail strip my firearm down to the last pin after every range trip. And so, well, really? I mean, that's going to get old really fast. Plus, you're going to wear your gun out, which is the truth.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, if for my concealed carry guns, if I clean one, well, then I put a magazine in it. I go back outside. I shoot the magazine. I reload the magazine, put it back in the gun, and that's how I carry it. Because when you take your gun apart and now you do something to it like that, when you put it back together, I personally think you should shoot it a few times, to make sure it works. And as you say, it's going to run fine. You just oiled it and everything. And you know that it's probably going to go bang because you just shot it, right? But yeah, I think if you go to the range, well, see, like I often will have people come visit and they say, hey, I've never shot one of those guns and one of those guns. And as you well know, when you come visit, that always deteriorates into, oh, let me get this other one. I bet you've never shot one of these, right? And then pretty soon there's a dozen guns laying on the table and rifles leaning in the corner and stuff. Well, good Lord. If I felt obligated to detail clean every one of those, I'd be cleaning guns for a week. So what I do is I wipe off the exteriors really well. I always do that. Use a good gun oil. You make sure all the fingerprints are gone, wipe out everything like that, and then you put them away. And then if you're then you shoot them again and again and again and again. And when you start to say like, bolt's kind of running a little ragged now, you take it out, wipe it off, clean a little bit, or lube it back up, put it back together. You're good to go. I know people are probably, their hair's going to catch on fire and they're going to go running down the hallway screaming hearing
Yeah,
this, but I think that there are more shooters out there than will admit that that's what they do. And I know there is because
absolutely.
I fix people's guns and they give me guns that look like that the cat drug them in, from
Yeah.
outside.
Well, I always
So,
make the point that I don't think I've ever. Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I don't think I've ever damaged a gun through normal cleaning processes. But when it comes to taking them apart and pins and screws or not assembling it properly, I've done damage and I've lost parts and things like that. So there's nothing wrong with detail stripping, especially if you're qualified to do it or you know what you're doing. And every gun probably ought to have that once in a while. And like we talked a couple of episodes ago, it doesn't hurt just take it down to the gun shop and pay them to do it. But if you do it every single solitary time, you're just increasing those odds that something bad will happen. So just wanted to make that point that I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be reasonable. And what's that old saying, Roy, that I do not subscribe to? Everything in moderation. Hey.
no, it is true. I think in new shooters, especially because you don't know yet, so when you bring your fill in the blank gun home from the gun store and you shoot it, now in your mind, you think, well, I'm supposed to like clean it, right? And
Yeah.
you don't really know what that is. So you go on YouTube and you find some idiots that, wearing their old Marine hat and they're 78 years old saying that you have to detail strip your firearm to
Yeah.
down to the last pin, and then you get another guy like me saying, you know what, don't really worry about it too much. Just, take the slide off, wipe it off, squirt some oil in, put it back together. You're done for the day. You know,
Yeah.
you should be
Yep.
shooting, not cleaning your gun. It's too much.
Yep.
And,
Exactly.
yeah, and I think I just go back to the fact that if you're a new shooter with all these things we've been talking about, if you had a mentor, then a lot of the stuff you would be able to understand and you would be aware of because they'd be explaining it to you. If
Yeah.
you called them up and said, "Hey, I
Exactly.
want to get the new hydroelectric cleaning assembly CNC machine, because I just bought my first gun." you know, and
Yeah.
a seasoned shooter would say, no, actually, need to go buy a $15 gun cleaning kit, and
Yeah.
learn how to use that. So I
Yep.
want to bring up another thing, or go ahead if you.
Okay. We've got time for about one more, and I was gonna bring up the first thing you said on the list, but it is ammo disappears faster than snacks at a party. And any experienced shooter knows this, but I think it's shocking anytime, but especially as a newer shooter, it's like once you get into the flow and it's like this is great, and then I'm out of ammo. But there were 50 of them in there, and I've shot them all, or I brought an entire case and I've shot through most of that. Yeah, it when you're having ammo flies when you're having fun. So your
Well,
thoughts, Roy?
we talked about that before. There's something having to do with today's shooter. It's all about volume.
Yeah,
I mean, I literally hear from people who say when they go to an indoor range, they will shoot a brick of 22s.
yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of ammo. So, and I mean, if I went to shoot a 22 when I was 20 years old, 50 rounds that'd be a busy time, right?
yeah,
100 rounds would be, oh my gosh. Yeah. And they soon realize though, because they buy this gun for $500 or $800 and they buy their first box of ammunition, which costs, whatever, anywhere from 15 to $50, and they shoot it and now it's gone. Right.
yeah.
And so at that point, they
Now
either
you have a
panic.
club.
Yeah. And either that they either panic and they kind of reevaluate they make this decision about buying a gun and shooting, or they begin to ask questions about reloading. I see that all
Yeah,
the time. Hey, I bought my third gun and I would like to learn about reloading because, it's a little expensive. I hate to throw the brass away. I mean, I think it'd be a little more interesting. So, which actually
yeah,
brings up another thing, and that is that we walk around our property here, and that you get you get accustomed to looking at things on the ground, and because we find arrowheads and whatnot every once in a while. And so
Yeah.
we were here several years before we found our first arrowhead, but it's not because they weren't there. It's because we didn't see them. We weren't looking, right?
Yeah.
And so after you're a shooter and stuff like that, it's amazing how often you find brass.
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to use that? Is that,
Yeah.
I saw a brass case there. Can I have it? I threw a handful of 22 empties away not too long ago, and there was a new shooter. He was mortified, and he said, "Well, don't you keep those? Can't you put more bullets in them?"
Well, Tom McHale did. He did that 22 reloaded.
I know, yeah. Don't bother, boys and girls. Yeah, don't do that. So can we end it? Can we end it with one more? Just a quick one?
Sure.
And this is something that people don't think about, is that, especially if you've been on the line between non-owning of a gun and gun owning, like you said, do I want one? Do I not want one? Am I afraid of them? Are they bad? Are they good? And so you finally take the bold leap, you buy your first gun. Well, chances are good you're going to have friends who are either anti-gun or pretty ambivalent about it. And so they're going to say, you bought a gun? Well, why'd you do that? Are you paranoid? Isn't it dangerous? Isn't your dog going to die because you have a gun in the house? Right? So be prepared that you're going to have those conversations. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, is that you've just really become a member of a community that sometimes you may feel compelled to defend and have people understand better. So arm yourself for that too.
Good point. Good point. That wraps up episode 328. We hope today's reality check helps you save some money, save you time at the cleaning bench, and helps you focus on the skills that really matter at the range. Before we go, a huge thanks to our sponsor, EOTech, for making this show possible. Be sure to check out all their great products at eotechinc.com. And while you're online, make sure you head over to gunsmagazine.com to sign up for their newsletters and get your daily dose of 70 years of great gun stories from your favorite gun writers. Now, on behalf of the team at gunsmagazine.com and my co-host, Roy Huntington, I'm your host, Brent Wheat. And as we always say, now get out there and get shooting.